Welcome to Cosmic Conversations, the podcast where spirituality meets real life. I'm Siobhan, your host, aka the Cosmic Coach, and this is a space where we are going to explore the layers of what make us truly who we are. There's going to be a series of solo episodes along with some incredible guests, a space where we can truly discuss the universe within us all. Aoife Murphy, thank you so much for coming on to Cosmic Conversations and welcome. I can't wait to have a chat with you today. How are you?
Good, and thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here with you, and especially your second guest, which is I'm so excited about.
Yes, so exciting. And just from kind of getting to know you online and looking at your Instagram page, which is absolutely incredible. Seeing you do your work out in Bali, I can really see how passionate you are about this. And I'm sure you're told a lot you're radiant, but it's I think when you're doing something that's your purpose and it feels really right for you, you can just see someone glow, and you definitely have that glow about you. And I'm so excited to just talk to you about it, get to know you more, and kind of why this work and why it's important to you.
That is so sweet. Thank you. That is such a kind thing to say. And it really is a privilege to be on. I know we followed each other for a while now, and just even seeing snippets of your life and your family life and stuff. And it's really nice that now we actually get to meet and actually have a proper chat with that depth. So thank you. I'm grateful for
Exactly.
this.
Yeah. So this podcast will be educational, but it's just two gals getting to know each other as well. Suppose to start us off, tell us a bit about you, Aoife. Tell us, your story. And yeah, if you don't
Yeah.
mind.
Of course. So yeah, my name is Aoife, and I am living in Bali at the moment. I lived in Australia for 3 years and originally from West Cork, and I'm a breathwork and energetics practitioner, and only in the last month am I after leaving my full-time job to step into this full-time. So it's very fresh and new in my journey. It's a new chapter, but it's definitely something that has sparked that fire in my belly a couple of years back, and it just felt like the right time to go all in. So the last month or so it's been challenging in the way of trying to navigate it all, but it's definitely feels like the right decision, and I'm really passionate about helping people with the modalities that so much helped me in the place where I wasn't in such a great place in my life. And it really kind of came from that personal experience. And I come from the background where I would have been working. I would have worked in social care, I would have worked in homeless services and domestic violence for years. And it was I had such a grow or love for learning about trauma, learning about the impact of our past and experiences, how that impacts our behavior. And it's something that I was always so interested in. I actually did a postgraduate in trauma studies, but it wasn't until it was my own personal experience that these Eastern modalities started to almost help me in ways that accelerated any of the things that I was doing in my everyday life, and the traditional ways that I was taught that would help and would move me kind of forward or move me through things that I was navigating. And that's kind of what drew me to the energetics and breath work. And the energy that I work with is Reiki, which I'm sure a lot of people will be familiar with, which is Japanese energy healing, and Kundalini it's embedded in Hinduism, but it's a really potent, powerful energy. It's your own life force energy, but sometimes people like to describe it as Reiki on steroids. It's a bit more of an active one, but it's essentially it's the somatic experiencing. So the work that I love so much is really working with what is beneath the surface, what drives our behavior, what creates our reality, and how do we let go of the things that may no longer be serving us and create, I suppose, a life and a space that we want to be able to draw in those connections and those.
Wow, that's so fascinating. I love how you said you were working with people who had experienced trauma, and then you kind of went through a phase in your life where you needed something like
Yeah.
this. So was the breath work and the energy healing, was that something that you were aware of while working in that role, or was it kind of more so your own personal journey that pushed you into that then?
Yeah, it was kind of my own personal journey. I definitely would have been open. I'm a very open person, and I would have been quite spiritual as a child, probably wouldn't, or a teenager wouldn't have identified it with spirituality. Again, my family are really religious, and I think I just had this perception of what spirituality is and what it holds, and religion was very much forced on. So I didn't want to identify with it, but it was definitely something that I think was there that I held and I valued. I just didn't know how to connect with it or identify with it. And it wasn't true till through my own journey that I actually was like, actually, hold on a second, like, what does spirituality mean? And like, how can I hold like this depth to the connection of what I believe in and to, you know, like, and match it with my values and how I want to live my life. And then it was working in the space that I suppose people that had experienced like quite complex, significant trauma and looking at how that impacted their lives, like even the sense of safety, like which is like the fundamentals of anything. Yeah, I suppose working with people that were within like homeless services that had experienced like significant trauma or childhood trauma and seeing the impact that that had on their lives and like the intergenerational trauma, like it was almost cycles. I worked in it for about 7 years in Ireland. So it was even like I was starting to see different generations coming into services and seeing how that impacted them. And it was through my own journey. I was in like quite an unhealthy relationship and I was doing all of the things that I was told, I suppose, that society tells you help. Like I was going to therapy weekly, was working in like a domestic violence space where I had all the education. I understood everything at a logical, rational like viewpoint, but still couldn't actually act on it. And I didn't know what this was. And I even remember like there was different points in my life, like going to the doctor and then being like, oh, it's anxiety, like it's going to go. And what actually now looking back in reflection, it was actually my nervous system. It was like you have to create this sense of safety so that you have the capacity to make those different choices, to almost like move differently and like have that capacity and authority over like how you live your life. Because unfortunately, like a lot of times if you're stuck in that survival response, you're relying on your survival responses to move you through the day. And it's really hard to cognitively make a decision because your prefrontal cortex is switched offline. And that was very much where I found it really hard. And it wasn't until I started Reiki myself that I got snippets of like moments of clarity. And those moments of clarity, they were like micro moments that accumulated to like a massive transformation in my life where I actually would make small micro decisions that had like knock-on effects, like almost like ripples. Like I decided to go to a retreat. The retreat, I came away from the retreat. I decided to like go to Bali for the month. In Bali, I decided to come back and like move out of the house that I was living with that partner and like start actually like prioritizing myself, but still like I suppose it was still like transitioning out of the relationship. And then to the point where Kundalini was the first time I ever actually experienced Kundalini, and the feedback loop was so fast. That day I left and it started to shit everything that needed to be gone very abruptly. Things happened like literally instantly. And I came away from the session. I booked my visa to Australia. I didn't tell anyone because I was like, they're going to think I'm so reactive over what's after happening. But I was like, I knew, like I had this inner knowing, like something in me just shifted. And I suppose that's what those modalities did. They like accelerated like what I needed to do and they gave me the capacity to do it. And it was just really empowering. It was like I was going to therapy and I was just going around in circles. I had all the information. It would be the same every week, but it was so hard because I had no safety in my body to actually act differently and choose differently, which is is why I was so drawn to this. I just feel like these modalities can help people in so many ways, and like everybody deserves to live a life that they're excited to wake up to, that they truly desire, and everybody has the capacity to do that. And it often, there's, I suppose, limitations and things that we often like have, but there probably most likely is a way around that. Like there's very few things. A lot of us are quite privileged to be in the position where we can wake up every day and we can actually make a choice. And it's not that it's all an easy choice, but I think there's limitless possibilities out there, and everyone is deserving of living that life that they desire.
Wow. It's so fascinating to hear you say like how like you were in therapy, you knew on paper like certain things you had to do, but it all came down to actually your nervous system was
Yeah.
dysregulated. And I was just thinking there as you were talking, how, and we'll get into a bit more with the breath work of the Kundalini because I'm really fascinated to hear more about that. But like, I suppose breath is something that we all have and we can all work with it. And I think it's just like a really important thing to note as well. Like, therapy, counseling, even coaching, they are so important. But again, I think you need to work with all the bodies. You've got to work with the emotional, the spiritual, the physical, all of it. So it's just so interesting to hear your journey with that and how it kind of helped you then shift, leave that relationship, move to a different part of the world, start your own kind of spiritual awakening. So I suppose I wanted to ask you, like, why breath work? What drew you to that?
So breathwork was one of the first modalities that I wanted to. I came to Bali. Remember I said there somewhere in that
Mm.
story that I came to Bali for a month in my lovely
And you came
praise.
back.
And I tried breathwork, and I was like, I came away and I was like, I actually thought someone like drugged me. I was like, what was that? And how do I get that again? And I came back to Ireland and I looked for it in Ireland. And at the time, this is going back like maybe like 3.5 years ago or so. So it wasn't as readily available or spoken about even. It
Mm.
probably was there, but I just didn't know. And I was asking around and people were kind of like pointing towards like down regulated breath. And I was like, no, that wasn't it. This was like this insane, like transformational breath. They were like, don't know where to find it. And it's the modality that I went searching for. And actually, it's funny, like when you think of like divine timing, I I'm such an energy person. I resonate
Mm.
with this world and connect with this world through energy. And I really wanted to find a breath that was like almost like also energetic based. So they had the body work, they also kind of connected the breath with energy because I see breath as energy work as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of wanted to find that training that resonated with me, and I couldn't find it. And the Kundalini training came up, and I was like, "Is this?" I was like, "Kundalini has been the modality that has like dramatically changed my life. Like it was one that I was always really drawn to. I still did, and I ended up doing the Kundalini, and then breathwork came up down the line, and now the sessions that I hold is not training that I've done. It's what I've created. So my sessions are so different to like what I've like been trained to do. So I never can do just breath work. I'll do a lot of energy work. I have to actually like do my breathwork sessions a little different because they actually feel different when I've blended the modalities. And yeah, it's been really special that I've been able to blend everything that I've learned into like my own signature and kind of what
Mm-hmm.
helps me as well. And like there's so many different like I did a women's health and yoga course that time that I went to Bali. Like there's so many courses that at the start I was like, am I ever going to do anything with them? And I know like if there's anyone else in that situation, it's like you're like, oh, you do the course and then afterwards you feel a bit deflated because you're like, what am I meant to do now? And you mightn't have that draw or that pull to go into it straight away. But I think the thing is, it's going to come into your life at some point, and whether you work directly with that thing that you learned or whether it's weaved into another experience, like it's definitely worth it, and it's a part of the journey. And I think where you're standing right now, it might not make sense or you might not see the full picture, but it's definitely a part of the process and something is conspiring in that.
Oh my God, that's incredible. So you took kind of like, you took pieces from everything you've learned and you've made this kind of niche
Yeah.
experience for people. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Like, wow,
I
can we,
feel
can
like
we
an
sit with that
energetic
for a minute?
teacher.
Like, yeah, like, can we hold space for that? That's actually insane. Like, that's, I mean, I didn't realize, that that's what you were doing. That's fascinating. Um, and I suppose, like, I'm curious to know, like, what does a session look like with you? Like, is it one to one? Are you doing group sessions? What does that look like?
So I'm kind of in a bit of a transition stage within my business. I had done a lot of group work in Sydney, so very like much like in-person groups. Also worked with people in like a one-to-one capacity. I also do like separate sometimes of like just breath work, just Kundalini, or like a blend of both. But even when I hold the space, it feels very different to the way like I was kind of thought it. I suppose it's what the teacher's practice is blended in with my own like my own knowledge and my own values and things. But it was very much in person, and I had started to dabble online, but not do as much. And a lot of people that work in the space had been online, and I did a lot of my own transmissions online as well. So I was like, I knew it was possible. Like I had no doubt that this work, I could reach so many more people if I went online. But it was more of an internal block for me. I think that I was kind of like, oh, like that fear, and it just felt a little out of my depth. And I suppose it was just some work that I had to do myself. So I've kind of moved predominantly online. I now have created a healing container, which is really exciting, to work one on one, like with that depth. That was like something I really valued, was being able to, if someone has a specific thing that they're journeying through or moving through, that I could really like help them with that. And the way I've created the container, which is like the best thing that I'm so proud of, is it's exactly what I wish I had at the start of my journey. It's all of the pieces that I got, but all in one this time. It's like having the somatic work, also having a bit that's like cognitive, that people can like cognitively process it a little, kind of like coaching style, but like more to do with like how do we integrate the shifts. I always say to my clients, like the work you do on the mat, the breathwork session you go to, the energetic session you go to, it's 10% of the work. Like 90% of the work is outside of that. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like that's where the transformation happened. That's where the change happens. So this container was to hold space in between to help people integrate and move them along whilst using these modalities. And yeah, so I'm really excited. That's what I'm mainly working with at the
Wow.
moment. Yeah.
That sounds incredible. I suppose I'm like, as you're talking, I know breathwork is probably kind of self-explanatory and the Kundalini, and you mentioned somatics. Would you mind like just basically telling us like breathwork, Kundalini, somatics, kind of what are they
Yeah, of
and how
course.
you like how they work together?
So the breath work that I do is a somatic breath work, which is quite an active style breath. So it's more for it's an upregulated breath if you want to. So we kind of balance between your sympathetic and your parasympathetic. Not that you're like stressed as in stressed of like shut off and I'm out of here, but stress and we it's a like a healthy stress response we bring into the body that's managed and controlled. So
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of like if you've ever been to a breath work that's a bit like faster, upbeat, that's kind of the style of breath that I do. And basically, the benefits of doing that style of breath is we switch off our prefrontal cortex, which is like switching on down the mind, and we start to like drop into the body. And the body is, it does really hold the score, but it's also a lot of like that subconscious behavior is like being driven by what is stored in the body. So we create a space that is like somatic experiencing essentially, where we go into the body and anything that we have not maybe processed or maybe didn't feel safe enough to process in our life, it's about creating safety in the body in that moment to fully process that. So things from the past might come up in like expression, it might come up in like a physical expression, it might come up in like an emotional expression. It could also be like almost like a light bulb moment. It's like depending on what way you like connect with intuition. It could be like you'll get like downloads or messages, or it could be colors. It can be really trance like. That's when
Mm-hmm.
I said like it was like I was on drugs. Obviously, I didn't take drugs to get there, but it was like the breath actually brought me to that trance like state. And also like the physical sensations in the body. And with Kundalini, it's very similar because it's somatic, but the difference between breath and Kundalini. So breath is very much like a masculine energy. It's that control. So we're controlling the breath to get into that state where we can drop into the body. Where Kundalini is a feminine, a divine feminine energy, which is very much around the surrender and the flow. So together, like most of the times when I did like my group classes, it was like blending the two modalities. So it was like that feminine and like that yin and yang kind of blending in one session, because you get to drop into that state of surrender. And that can be quite hard because our mind is so active, but really it's just laying there and receiving. But again, very similar. It feels very similar in the body to a breathwork session, in the sense, again, like might be emotional releases, physical release, like movement, or also like spiritual or like connection to like past loved ones is a massive one actually that I get a
Oh,
lot of.
really?
A lot of people, yeah, yeah, a lot of people
Wow.
come into sessions and have like feel this like strong connection to loved ones that have passed and like have come with messages for them. It really is that, I suppose, that place I feel like as well that like opens up to that other realm. Like we open
Yeah,
ourselves up to that.
absolutely.
And Kundalini is, it's essentially it's a little different to Reiki. So they're my two kind of, they're the more like upregulated, it's somatic, kind of like the deeper healing we call them.
Hmm.
And then Reiki is that really grounding, balancing energy that I also kind of intertwine just to kind of come down and really settle into the systems. But it's like beautifully with the others because it's like we have that really kind of deeper healing and then we really ground back in. But
Hmm.
together they really amalgamate really nice. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God,
And
that sounds
Kundalini,
beautiful.
yeah, I know Kundalini energy as well might be like new enough because it is new enough to the Western world. So I know a lot of people might not know what it is, but it is, I suppose, your own life force energy, which is a little different to Reiki, where you would be a conduit for life force energy. And it's a sacred energy that is laid dormant at like the bottom of your spine. So everybody has this energy, and it's about like meeting, it's like a tuning fork. So I basically create a field of energy that opens and you begin to attune to that energy and it begins to rise within you and
Mhm.
purify your system. So that's kind of how the release happens and that purification process.
Okay, so can I ask, like, it has ever happened that maybe someone will come to a session and they can't go any deeper, like maybe the Kundalini just isn't activating or they're just not really feeling the breath work, or is it kind of always like, I'm sure it looks different for everyone, but I suppose what I'm trying to ask is, does it come up when it's ready to come up? If that
Yeah.
makes sense.
No, it's a great question. And I think if you look up Kundalini online and you see the videos and you go, like, it's
Hmm.
usually it's like a big movement, big kinesthetic kind of like reaction. And that does not determine how profound the experience. It's the biggest myth that is in the
Okay.
field
Because
is
that's
that,
what I in my head.
yeah. And I think a lot of people do because we as human beings are primed for tangible experiences like that, where we can see something, we're like, ah, must be working. Where something isn't seen, it's like, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean? So every session is very different, so you will have no session that is the same. And again, it comes down to safety of the body, which is like, it's the thing that I'm really grateful about the work as well, that I can't manipulate this to, I suppose, be a bigger session for someone just for my own ego or for their own ego to be like, let's make this a really big session so that you come back to me. Because it's going to have to create safety in the body so that they don't walk out of
Mm.
there and they're like completely dysregulated, completely overwhelmed because something came up for them that they were not ready for. So the beauty of with the work is people are still sitting and bathing in the same frequencies. Sometimes it might take a while for that deeper somatic unwinding to happen. And everyone's kind of had like different paths. They've traveled different journeys. They're also at different stages of their own healing journey, which means we're all going to operate a little different when we get down
Mm.
onto the mat. And it's about working with your nervous system. Where's your nervous system at? And how do we work with you to unwind that? So it's really about that somatic unwinding. So for some people, it may be a bit more gentle for them at the start. Not that they wouldn't get anything from it, but they might be like, oh, that felt like really, really restful. And sometimes you go through a lot, like you just have a heavy week, you're getting shite sleep and there's loads going on
Mm.
in your life, and you go into a session and you expect, the thing is, sessions never go as they're planned. You think you're having
Mm.
a heavy week, you go in and you sit on the mat, and I guarantee you that week you will not be having a heavy session because your body knows not to go there. You do not have the capacity to go
Hmm.
there. And it's the weeks
Wow.
that
Yeah.
everything is going good for you that you get in the mat and you're there crying and something else is coming up and you're like, where did this come from? And it's
Yeah.
wild.
Your
Body's
body
so
knows.
powerful. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's fascinating. Like your body knows what you're capable of allowing to come up to release it.
Yeah.
And that makes so much sense. I'm thinking about like when I hold, say, moon circles or angelic meditations, it's similar.
Yeah.
It's an angelic healing modality. And like you said, like I plan it, but then I get into the room and the energy is completely different. And we're like, okay, no, we're going a different way with this.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, some people will come out of the meditation. They're like, oh my God, and that was just so lovely and so much love. Some people will wake up, come out of it crying and they're like, that was really emotional for me. Or some people like, I fell asleep. And it's
Yeah.
like, it's mad how our body and our consciousness just goes where we need to go for
Yeah.
the healing to happen.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I'm like, wow. I'm like,
Definitely. And
after this talk, I'm like, I'm booking in with Aoife. I know that I think you're coming, I might see on your story that you're
but
coming to Ireland soonish. So I'm like, I'm keeping my eyes peeled. Yeah.
yeah, we're actually coming to, so I'm going home in August, but we're doing a retreat in Wicklow, which we haven't. I'm so laid back with stuff. So we're doing a
Yeah.
weekend retreat in Wicklow, that I've literally teased on my stories, and I've been doing the PDF and stuff today. Me and Alima Alana, I don't know if she's
Yes, yeah,
from,
I'm
she's
familiar,
from
yeah.
Berries, yeah. So we're doing a retreat together, and I'm sure I'll probably do some like sessions and group sessions as well in Cork,
Yeah.
when I'm home. Yeah.
There'll be a race for those tickets now after this podcast. I'm like, I want to go. How do these sessions help people? Like when someone walks out of a session, what can they expect to happen or feel kind of the weeks and months afterwards?
Yeah. So I always say with energy, like it's not like bound to time or space, and often like post session, it's still like moving through your systems, and our body often works like much faster than our mind. So we come out of a session and it might not even make sense. It's like I know something happened there, but I have no idea what happened there, if that makes sense. And it's like it takes some time to process that at a cognitive level, and I suppose that's the importance of integration as well. That we jump back, we do sessions, and then we jump back into our lives, and the things that kind of came up in the sessions or the things that we're shifting through, we've actually created no space in our reality to integrate what we're trying to process or what we're trying to move through or what we're trying to like kind of shift through. So everyone's experience is a little different afterwards, and I suppose depending on what came up for them. And like it's like even for example, for like some of the things that I'm working on with some of my clients, like some of my clients, it's like quite significant trauma that we're moving through. And then for others, it's like moving through like their like building their business and building the capacity to like, you know, I suppose hold that vision that they have for their business and the fear and things that are deeply embedded under that are driving that behavior. But post sessions, it could be like something, it's like I call it like almost like the volume is turned up. Like I find the feedback loop really fast. So you know, things that don't like fit or they don't resonate, and often we might know it at some level, but we'll just ignore it, like that kind of like inner voice, that intuition. Or like there might be someone that you're like, I have to be really mindful of my energy around them, or something that you're doing. It could be like maybe a job that you're in or something like that. And I find after the sessions, like, and this was through my own experience and like kind of what I see as well with my clients, is things are, it's
Mm-hmm.
like a mirror is like put up to your face in your reality, and the volume is turned up so high that you actually, it's the pain of actually staying in that situation that is not in alignment with you. It's more like then actually making that change. And I think that's where it takes that to actually initiate the change, because often we'll stay because it's like, oh, it's a bit more comfortable. But it's
Mm-hmm.
like those things that aren't meant for you or might no longer serve you or fit like that shoe doesn't fit anymore, then I find that those things are like really mirrored, and it's kind of like a shedding. It's like a purification
Yeah.
process. It's really about like that deep alignment and being able to create that into your reality. And everything that is in our reality is a reflection of our internal world, whether it's our connections, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
perceptions of the world. It's how we move and interact with this world. So it's so important, like, to know that when you're doing those internal shifts, like they are genuinely going to make the difference in your reality as well.
It's so funny that I'm sitting here as you say that, because the other evening I had counseling, and my counselor is also an angelic energy healer, so she can kind of infuse the both, and we're kind of dipping in and out of both. And we were talking about something, and my inner child is in the room, and I was like, okay, yeah, like I need to hone in on these boundaries. And I swear to God, the next morning something happened where I had to be like, oh God, I have to
Test.
actually do this now. So as you're saying that, I'm just like, it's mad how like we go in there, we allow this to come up, we allow it to heal, but then our reality is going like, okay, are you ready to integrate this now? Like, here's a trigger. This is your
Yeah.
mirror. Like, are you going to move away from this? What are you going to do here? I suppose it's like the one thing, I suppose, in a healing journey and in a spiritual awakening, that yes, it's incredible, but it's also, you have to kind of be ready for that. Like, you have to be ready to
Yeah.
take that accountability. You have to be willing to change. You have to be
Yeah.
willing to make changes in your life. And so I think that's like a really big thing that maybe people might not know if they haven't done anything like this before, is yes, you might feel the days after like you might get triggered, or there might be an emotion coming up, but that's just there because it's ready to be released, and it's really ready for you to kind of level up and move on. So I suppose that's like the real power with this work, is that you are essentially stepping into a higher version of yourself, a higher timeline, a version of you that, like you said, isn't held back by beliefs or fears or anything else. You're removing
Mhm.
those blocks essentially.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and
Yeah, it's
it is such a powerful journey. And I think it's not even sometimes that I think people don't even realize it's like they'll jump into I think Sydney particularly is a very wellness orientated like place, and we have every modality at our fingertips at any time of the day. It's beautiful, like it's such a privilege, but also you get wrapped into just jumping into one session next to the next session, and it's like there obviously it's really really powerful to be doing the work, but also the shadow or the actual integration, like that is part of the process, and it creates space essentially in us to actually like draw those things in. I often say, like, I use an analogy just because I work well with analogies of like, if you think of like a full cup, and like the cup is your body, and our bodies are so full of like tension, so full of like stored trauma and past experiences and things that are no longer like are kind of playing out, that those patterns that are driving our behavior, and our cup is full, and we're trying to like manifest or call in these like relationships, these connections, these job opportunities, and there's nowhere for them to go because we're
no
too full.
space in the
Like
cup.
we
Hmm.
need to literally create that space to, and then it will act like a vacuum. And even if
Hmm.
we like, if anyone even thinks of a time in their life that they truly let go of something, or they were like, actually I'm done with this, it's no longer for me, and yet you finally actually let it go, it's like something comes out of nowhere. And you're like, where did that conversation come, or where did that job
Hmm.
opportunity? It just comes out of like nowhere, and it's like you've created that space. It's going to be a vacuum, but you have to do the hard, difficult things to get to that
Yeah.
space.
It's so true, isn't it? And like I'm looking at you and I'm like I can see how much your life has changed from this. And I'm wondering like how have you like as a person like inside changed? Like how you feel or how you even speak to yourself through going
Yeah.
through this whole journey.
Like so much has changed. I was actually on about it the other day to somebody. Like so much has changed in my life, like my relationship with myself, like how I value and how I see myself. Don't get me wrong, I am still triggered a lot,
We're
and I
human.
think yeah, and that's the thing, and it's like just being like compassionate with myself, and it like for like yeah, I've done a lot of work on myself. I know a lot of knowledge, but at the end of the day, I am still human, but. Like there's so much that has shifted that now I react differently, I respond differently, and I have a better response to how things play up in my life. So like I would have been a person that would have been very much like a fawn response. Any niggle of conflict, tension, I would be like, right, how do we dissolve this as soon as possible? Obviously, I wouldn't ask that question, but I would be like, right, I'll people please. So I'll go get them something, I'll buy something. I've never said this, but like someone like smashed my phone and like they were like being really aggressive. And sorry, not my phone, their phone. And I went and I paid for it because I didn't want to sit with the discomfort of like, but it's something like even to look back now, I'm like, what? Like that, I wouldn't even dream of that now. Like the
Hmm.
boundaries that I have are like so strong. I know my worth. I know that I'm deserving of like of receiving love and like what like healthy love looks like. And yeah, I think even the way I hold myself has made such a like it's put me in situations that I'm in now. Because
Hmm.
without that I wouldn't have gotten there. And actually like using my voice, a big thing was mine was like I was so afraid to be seen, and it was like to shrink myself and to actually there was the fear of that expression. And if I expressed like what was the consequence of that? Was it going to be that there was going to be some sort of tension or conflict or like reprimand for what I was like showing up as? And now I feel very confident in like showing up as me, and it's not something, of course, yeah, I'm still like public speaking, but like confidence in the sense that I believe in what I'm saying and that my
Hmm.
voice need like it is, it needs to be heard and it needs to be shared with people. And I think it's helped me actually step into the position that I'm in now, because I wouldn't, if I think of me 3 years ago, I wouldn't have even backed myself to put myself in this position where I'm like, yes, I can do this. I am deserving of doing this. And I know that my intentions are coming from a good place and that I'm able to have a greater impact this way. But a lot of like the self-talk I would have had prior to this would have been like, you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, like you can't do
Hmm.
that. Who do you think you are? Who do you think you are, leaving your job, like taking that risk? Like there would have been
Hmm.
such backlash from my internal dialogue where it's not even a fight I have in my head. Like I know, I feel it. And I think that was the difference, is like, it's not something that I'm like pretending or like, kind of putting on a mask. It's like something I genuinely have embodied. And I think that
Hmm.
was like the really important part of my journey, was like really that embodiment of like who I am as a person and like what I value and like how do I actually want to show up in this world and like how do I want to move through this world. And
Hmm.
I still get triggered. I still have to consciously, I suppose, like pull myself back sometimes, but there's definitely been a big shift in how I move through this world and how my relationship with myself.
Yeah, I can really see that, and just like even you saying your relationship with yourself, it just like it reminds me like that like this whole thing of life or this healing journey, it really is just you're working on the relationship with yourself constantly because that is the core. And like you said, that's going to affect your relationship with others. It's going to affect your relationship, how you talk to yourself, your job, how you show up in your career. It just really reminded me like that is the core of everything. And anyone who's like doing any sort of like sorry, anyone who's doing any form of like self-development or personal development, essentially that's what you're doing. You're building like that foundation with yourself. You're getting to know yourself. And then like you said, you can show up then more authentically because the more you work on yourself, the more you heal yourself, you get to know yourself, and then you know your values, and you're like, okay, well, I'm gonna show up for myself here because I know that this is true for me, or I know that this feels good for me, or this is aligned with me.
Yeah.
So it's just like really nice to kind of see that like full circle as you were talking of like how this has benefited you and how this has helped you. Um, and you mentioned, before that you kind of would have had that narrative of I'm not good enough, like like who do I think I am? And
Mhm.
I wonder like for anyone listening, like how does that like dysregulation show up in our life in ways that maybe we're not aware it's actually dysregulation showing up?
Yeah, that's a good question because we live in a very upregulated world. So it is like go, go, go. And I think like dysregulation, there might be like some misconception of what is a regulated nervous system. And I think this is like another myth. Like it's not being zen all of the time. It is not being not triggered. It is the capacity to hold that and to come back down. So a regulated nervous system very much looks like this through the day. And I suppose a lot of times it's like people aren't taught this. Like they don't even realize that, you know, the medical system, not that it doesn't, but there might be different alternatives to what's going on. And it's like, I don't know why you have pain, or I don't know why, you know, you're experiencing that. And I actually, when I was working in youth homelessness, a lot of my clients were on like mood altering medication, which affected
Mhm.
their sleep, and they couldn't sleep. So I started to like do breathwork techniques with them to like help them to sleep. But that wasn't something
Yeah.
that would have been normally, I suppose, introduced to them. It probably would have been like, okay, sleep medication. How do we like do that? And I think one is maybe people just aren't aware of like other ways to bring yourself down to a baseline, and also like what is a baseline? Like I don't think a lot of people realize what their baseline is. Like what does that
Mhm.
mean to them? And like that does take time to like delve a little deeper. Like, you know, what does it feel like in your body to feel grounded? Like, what does it feel like to feel centered, to feel loved, to feel safe? Because often like this sense of like happiness, that's often like dopamine that's like confused with like what does grounded mean, like
Wow.
what does
Yeah.
safety mean. And we live in a world that is like all quick dopamine, like getting like, you know, from Instagram to like, I don't know, like even anything to do with our phones, vaping, like
Shopping,
there's so
even
much.
that instant
Yeah,
gratification. Yeah.
there's just so much of it there. So it's like, what, like, do we actually know the difference of what regulation feels like and not and dysregulation? But there's a lot going on in our world today that it's really hard to bring ourselves back down. So I think it's really good to like even just get curious with it. Like, what does it feel like to wake up and do a meditation instead of grabbing your phone? Like, try it for 7 days and come back. Has it made a difference? I can probably guarantee
Mhm.
it will. Maybe if it's your first time doing meditation, it's going to be really hard. So maybe try like something that's a bit of like a more active mindful practice. It could be like turning on like a yoga for 15 minutes before you grab your phone. Like try something and see what changes. Like we all have different nervous systems, we all have different lives. And I think it's like building a resource kit that suits your body, that suits your needs. And that's going to change depending on what season you're going through. Like I always say this thing that like not all doing is draining and not all resting is
Mhm.
refilling. So we actually really need to look at like
Mhm.
do an energy audit. Like what actually drains your energy in your life? What gives you,
Yeah.
what refills your cup in your life? And like, how do you want to determine how to spend your energy? Like, what's a priority to you? What do you value? Like, instead of being on autopilot and just doing the day-to-day things, like, what do we like? It's about coming in and taking autonomy over like our energy and like where we're at and how can we support ourselves and what does take our energy. If we know that I don't know, this is a bit of a season of business at the moment or career, then we know that other areas in our life might have to take a bit of a step back. And that's just the natural thing. I suppose
Mhm.
balance and like regulation and balance, it doesn't come in 50-50. It isn't this equal thing that it depends on like what's a priority in the season of your life and what do you need to lead with. And like being conscious as you move through that to like, I suppose, support yourself through it.
Yeah.
That's a long-winded way of putting it, but
No,
everyone's
that
so yeah.
yeah, that makes so much sense. And like I think it's so true, like it's not a one size fits all. And like you were saying, even try the meditation or try the yoga for 7 days, see how it feels. Like sometimes hindsight is the best indicator because you can look back then and be like, oh yeah, I was actually more relaxed going into work, or I didn't come home and start an argument with my partner that day. Like, you know, you start to see these signs as you implement like a healthier habit.
Yeah.
Um, and I was thinking, you know, would there be something that you could like recommend? Let's say there's someone listening and they think that they might be in fight or flight, they're not really sure, like is there like a specific, is it a box breath, or is there something that you would recommend for them to try in the moment to kind of bring their nervous system back down, maybe not to
Yeah.
baseline as you said because it takes a lot of work, but maybe to a place where they can kind of check in and be like, oh, I
Bit
do feel a little
yeah.
bit better.
Yeah. A morning routine is like something if anyone doesn't have one, get on it because you are missing out. Your whole world changes when you have
Mhm.
a morning routine that actually supports you. So I think even if you feel like you're in that place where there might be overwhelm, like you're setting the tone and the intention for the day. So do your morning routine. And that looks different. It doesn't have to be meditation or journaling. It could be going getting a coffee and not having your phone. It looks different. Set something that is like sustainable, that I suppose
Mhm.
we have to stretch the capacity of our nervous system too. So if you are in a state of like fight or flight, the one thing to be mindful is if we throw and slap on loads of these like tools that are great, but if we put them on and stack them, we're just stacking tools.
Hmm.
It's actually less is more. We need to build and strength and stretch our capacity when we're working with the nervous system. So start small if you don't have a morning routine, but it definitely is mine. Like it's a great way to start. And then I suppose if you are experiencing anxiety or overwhelm or that kind of overthinking in your mind is quite active, like a box breath is great. It's great for like
Hmm.
clarity and focus. So it's where you inhale through the nose for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, and hold for 4. And repeat that, even repeating that for 10 boxes, 10 breaths, it will make such a difference. And
Hmm.
if you are trying to, I suppose, down regulate, maybe you're going to bed and your mind is quite active, or something has happened in your life that has like made you feel quite distressed or overwhelmed, um, a really simple but so powerful breath is inhale through the nose, say for 4 seconds, and exhale through the mouth for 6, and do that again for about 10 breaths. And it's going to bring your, basically what it does, it signals to your nervous system to go into that rest and digest, that parasympathetic. So it will bring you down. It might, like you said, bring you into baseline depending on where you are, but it definitely will help you feel a lot more grounded than where you were at the beginning.
Wow. Okay. So as you're talking, I'm like, okay, so there is a difference between up regulation and down regulation. So I suppose like the likes of going to bed, or maybe you're feeling anxious in work, or there's confrontation or whatever, you're looking for something like a down regulation. So would that be then like, would that be a box breath, or the inhaling for 4 and
Yeah.
exhaling for 6 at
Yeah.
bedtime?
So they're both, they
Okay.
be both quite down regulating. And the one, so the box breath can also work for like clarity and focus because it can
Hmm.
still be, I suppose you're still taking quite like a lot of breaths, and like it's about oxygen. It's basically, there's a lot of
Hmm.
actually science there, like pH of the blood and
Yeah.
everything, but that would be great for like helping you get focused, but also ground you. And then the extended breath out is one that was really, really good for like before you go to bed, trying to switch off your mind. If you find it really difficult to fall asleep, or if you like are the person that is like waking up in the middle of the night and you're like, oh, like this,
Hmm.
it disrupts your sleep cycle, just even doing a few of those breaths can really help bring you back down into that parasympathetic.
Yeah. Okay. I'm curious to know now, what is your morning routine?
Good question. My morning routine has been built over a while, so it's it's so different. So don't take mine as literal, because mine started out really simple. And the thing that I always see people do is they create some, and you see it at the start of the year. People do New Year's resolutions. How many jump off the bandwagon after a month, 3 months? Literally like 70% of people to 80%.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about building,
Yeah.
because again, it actually comes back to nervous system capacity. If you slap on all of these things, your nervous system is going to be like, no, the fuck no, we're not doing this.
And so,
Yeah, so it's just like build it up. But my morning routine is I would try keeping my phone away. I do not put my, like, I put it at the other side of the room, and I do exercise like straight away in the morning. So I would do like about, it would be, I love classes, but I've had to stop the class at the moment because I have an injury. But usually I
mhm.
would do like a class in the morning. So it's a bit social, but like it's a high intensity workout. Um, and then I would come back and have coffee, journal, and meditation. If I was stuck for time, I might only be able to meditate. I majority will meditate nearly every morning. And if I have
Mhm.
time, I do the journaling as well. Or else um I might alternate it and do like meditation during the day. And even at the moment, I've had an injury. So I've had to like, this is what I mean, like different seasons of your life will
Mhm.
ask for different things. So like I'm meditating a lot more at the moment because I can't train as much, and training is like a big part of my regulation toolkit. And I've had a bike accident, so my toe is sore, so I have to be just careful with what kind of training I do. So I've been using meditations way more. So I do about maybe like 2 to 3 a day, only like 10 minutes, but it means that I just have to incorporate it a little more. But yeah, that's what my
Mhm.
morning routine looks like.
Wow. And I just know, like you mentioned, like you're injured at the moment, so you're kind of more in your meditation. Like, if you don't mind sharing, like, what do you feel is the lesson there? Because I just know, as a like you as a girl, I know you're probably like, what's the lesson here? What is this teaching me? You know?
I know. As soon as it happened, I was like, what is it? And it was so wild because when it happened, like it was a bike accident. It was actually very traumatic, like in the sense of my toe was like nearly falling off and everything. But as soon as I knew that it had circulation, I was like, it's fine. And I've just been put through the ringer in the last couple of weeks in Bali. And often people say it's like your initiation. I think it's just a test, like as I'm up leveling and I'm like stepping into that higher version. I think it's just a test from the universe to be like, can you actually hold the capacity? Like if something happens in your business, do you still have the systems in place? Like, do you still have the things that you can still run this? Because essentially I can still work with my foot. It could have been way worse, but I think it's also being like, we're just going to test you and like give it in
Mm-hmm.
dribs and drabs. Like I really think it was just a test to look at like you're trying to step into your next level. Like we're just gonna make sure that you have the capacity to do that.
Yeah. Oh my God. That's so fascinating. Um, I suppose, everything that you've talked about, I'm taking on, like, like where you were kind of working at the start of your career, what kind of led you into this breath work, how it works, how it brings up things that are ready to be seen and felt and released, and that kind of integration period after. And now this is like your calling and part of your purpose. Um, I suppose, to kind of leave the listeners with a nice question I like to ask guests, is like, what's one piece of advice, or it could be a quote or something that you read that you maybe would love to go back. It could be to go back and say to, that younger version of yourself, or it could be just to say to people now and where they're at now.
Yeah, I love that. Um, I definitely, for anyone listening, would say like everything in this life is temporary, whether it's the good, whether it's the bad. And if it is not, like, I love that thing, if it is not working out for you now, like there is more coming, like it is not the end. And it's so hard to sit in the uncertainty of when is it going to end. Like if you could tell someone you're going to feel so different in 6 months time, like I promise you, I put money on it, they'd be like, grand, I'll buckle up, I'll do it. I think it's like this sitting with the uncertainty of like when, but I promise you everything in this life is temporary. It will pass, it will be okay, and there will be like a higher meaning of it. I think oftentimes in life we can't see that full picture, and from where we're standing we can't see that outer lens where there's something in there, even though it might be painful, and at some point it will become a part of our journey. It either will be a lesson or something that we carry with us as wisdom. But it's definitely just to remind yourself that it's hard to sit in it, but know that it will pass and it will be okay.
Mm-hmm. That's so true. And I think like it's almost like nice to remind ourselves, like something that I like to remind myself of is like, I have survived 100% of my worst days. I will get through this. And
Yeah.
it's like, it also takes a little bit of accountability too, being like, okay, what is the lesson in this? Because sometimes it's hard to look at certain things that we're going
Mhm.
through and we're like, oh God, there's no lesson here. This is just shit. Often when something feels like it's in our way or it's blocking us or it's just obstructing our path, it's probably because it is our path and it's there for a reason. So it's always like asking yourself, what is this teaching me? What is this teaching me? And what can I take from this? So I think that's really, really good advice, Aoife. Thank you. It's been absolutely fascinating to listen to you and the tools that you've taught us and the power of breathwork and Kundalini, and you're infusing that with your Reiki and somatics. It's really special. You're holding a really special space in the world, and I cannot wait to hopefully get to meet you in person so that I can experience this magic. Um, but before we go, would you like to tell everyone, where they can find you, anything that you've got coming up at the moment? Because I'm sure that people will be intrigued now to follow on your journey.
Thank you. And thank you so much for having me. It's been so beautiful just to have a conversation. I just felt like it was two girls having a convo, which is beautiful.
Exactly, yeah.
Um,
Cosmic conversation.
so on Instagram, I'm Cree Connection. So Cree for like heart in Irish, so CROI. So you can follow my journey there. And a few of the things that I have coming up is I have a creators retreat in Bali, which is really exciting. That's for business owners. Yeah. Here in Bali in like a luxury villa, which I'm really, really excited for. And we will have myself and Alana have retreat coming up in Ireland, a weekend retreat that we're going to be launching this week.
Yeah, and I think by the time this goes out, your retreat will probably be live, and I imagine sold out with Alana. But as you said, you have your container online, so if anyone wants to connect with you or find you, they can find you there, and everything will be linked in the description. But Aoife, it's been an absolute pleasure, and thank you so much. Wow, what a conversation that was, Aoife. I feel like I want to go and awaken my Kundalini and practice breathwork and do somatic yoga and all of that. But it definitely is something that I feel we are called to do at a certain time of our awakening too, and actually something that myself and Aoife spoke about when the call ended or when the podcast ended, that it's definitely something along your journey you might feel more drawn to Kundalini or somatics or breathwork. So yeah, it's about trusting that, kind of following that intuition and knowing when to go with it and when it's the right time for you. Well, powerful stuff. But we're now into our affirmation of the week segment, which you know I do every week. So I'm going to pull an affirmation and see what comes up. Oh, okay. So the affirmation of the week is, I trust my intuition and listen to my inner guidance. I trust my intuition and listen to my inner guidance. And for this one, you know, I think sometimes people can be like, where is my intuition? Like, how do I know if it's my intuition or if it's fear or if it's just like my anxiety, you know, speaking to me? And it's so important to know, like, we all have that gut intuition. Men, women, children, we all have it. We all have that gut intuition, you know, everybody. And so it's important to know we do have that. And often it can be confused with like anxiety, overthinking. My whole thing is, I feel if you tune into yourself and if you ask your tummy or wherever you feel your gut is, it might be in your heart, it could be in your throat chakra, you know, tuning into that and being like, okay, what do I feel about this? What's going on for me? Tuning into your own guidance, guys. Oh my God. We all have it. We all have that intuition. We all have our gut. Our gut is always talking to us, especially, you know, that feminine energy. We are all being spoken to all of the time. Our body is giving us signs. Our reality around us is always giving us signs about things. Maybe our reality is always giving us signs, you know, around whether things are right for us. Does this align with us? You know, does this feel good for me? I always say that your intuition will be a soft whisper, and anything fear-based will be kind of screaming or shouting at you and looking for attention. And often that's anxiety, heart beating, thoughts over racing, you know, mind over racing, you know, not knowing up from down, left to right. Allowing space to quieten down and tune in to your intuition, that is going to be the answer. Intuition is a gentle nudge. Fear is going to be a push. And we all have that. I think it's so important for us to really tune into our intuition. It's like something that should be taught to us in school, you know, it really should be. Listening to your gut. And it's something, you know, as a mother, I want to teach my son, okay, does this feel right for you? Like, and as he grows up and gets older and, you know, maybe he's going out with friends and making new friends and going on social media, and I'm like, okay, do you want to go hang out with them? Like, how does that feel for you? Does it feel aligned? So just remembering that we all have that access, those answers within us. And maybe this is your sign to tune into your gut. And what is your gut telling you today? What is your intuition saying? And listen to the inner guidance. Thank you for tuning into Cosmic Conversations. If you enjoyed this episode, then please let me know. Maybe consider leaving a 5-star review or a comment on what you thought. I'd love to hear suggestions and feedback on any topics you'd like me to explore or unpack, or maybe a guest that you'd like me to have on so I can pick their brain. If you have a cosmic confession or a dilemma that you'd like me to explore next week, then please send it my way on Instagram at Cosmic Conversations Pod, or email thecosmiccoach.ie@gmail.com. Thank you and see you next week.